There we go.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing well tonight, Stephen. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining in for the very first ever Spray Jones and Think Spray Foam. I'm getting quite a delay here, Ronnie, coming through my speakers, just so you know. We tried this out here and see how we can have a live discussion on spray foam.
You sound good on my end.
Yeah, I'm getting about a good 5-second delay on my audio. Well, what we have here tonight is the first ever discussion where we can sit down and have an in-depth review about what spray foam is doing, how it's working. And this is brought to you by Think Spray Foam and Spray Jones. What is Think Spray Foam? It is the very first live online community, social media and private group for spray foam. It is where you can go and have a conversation about foam and ask questions, get reviews from people back, and avoid all the trolls and all the nonsense. It's an app that you download on your phone. It's something that we started in response to the industry to help get things moving for intelligent conversation and education. And it was something that we feel that is needed out there because people are saying that they don't know where to go, where they can chat and get accurate feedback. So that's where Think Spray Foam comes in, and you'll see it out there, thinksprayfoam.com. So, Stephen, why don't you start by just telling everybody about your career in foam, how things got started, and where you came into things with Spray Foam Coalition and the American Chemistry Council and all that?
Sure. I joined the spray foam industry in January of 2017 when I started with the American Chemistry Council at the Center for the Polyurethanes Industry. At that point, I thought spray foam was kits and cans, Home Depot, great stuff, Tiger Foam, all of the DIY products, so to speak, and had a crash course pretty quickly and learned rapidly that spray foam was far bigger than that. And I ran a group called the Spray Foam Coalition, which is a group of manufacturers and raw material suppliers to the industry that were primarily focused on issues related to health and safety with the product. And as we grew and matured and established strong and robust health and safety practices, the group got more and more into advocacy. And that's where I really think the coalition has found its footing. So I was at the American Chemistry Council for about 5 years. And in March of 2022, I transitioned and worked for Huntsman Corporation and ran all of their spray foam advocacy. And when the coalition decided to leave the American Chemistry Council, they asked me to come back and run it. So it's pretty much the same group of manufacturers and some raw material suppliers, but we are now an independent trade association solely focused on the spray foam industry and improving the advocacy footprint and continuing to grow the product. I can't hear you at all. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry. Yes. Now you can hear me.
We'll get better.
I muted it so nothing would be coming through. So one of the things that we wanted to do here today is take a look at what is changing in the industry. And I think one of the big things for advocacy is getting codes updated to where spray foam can take advantage and stop being viewed as a second and third rate insulation where we get priced out of the industry. And you've been working hand in hand now to try and get things on a state level changed where there's updates for code. Tell us a little bit about how that's been going and what have you been targeting to make that work?
Sure. So the Huntsman started to look at unvented attics as a key differentiator for spray foam, probably back in 2020 or so, really, maybe a little bit before the merger between Iceni and Lapola and Demilec that founded Huntsman Building Solutions. And Huntsman worked in Georgia to get the R20 unvented attics with ducts and conditioned space approved as the statewide requirement. If you're following the energy code, there is no requirement for attic insulation or for unvented attic insulation on the roof deck. The way it sits today in every state is that the requirement, well, I take that back, not the states that we fix, but in the rest of the states, the requirement for vented attics and unvented attics is exactly the same. There is no requirement for the unvented attic. So Georgia and Alabama were the first to adopt this. They actually adopted it through the legislative process, or sorry, take that back, through the regulatory process and through the Code Council. And when I came over to Huntsman, we decided to supercharge that and look at options to change the code both through legislation, which can be a little bit faster, or through the code councils, which meet on a regular basis at the state level. Some meet every 2 years, some meet more frequently within that. Georgia actually has an interim process. So they have the main code update, and then they allow code to be updated off cycle, so to speak. So that's why Georgia was an early target on this list. So in the last 5 years, we've updated the building code in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Utah, and North Carolina. And there's a couple of states that we targeted this year. Well, we got very close in Texas. We were moving right along, and had some broader political challenges in Texas that put that project on pause for the time being. In New York, they're currently looking at the unvented attic R30 statewide. We've seen the Senate pass the bill, and while we're running out of time here, we're hoping for a little bit of magic at the end of session where the bill makes it across the finish line in the next 24 or 36 hours. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I want to do some things where spray foam needs to be recognized for a bunch of the key benefits that it brings, like structural integrity, the resiliency things, and nobody's pushing these things. You know, the builders somewhat do, the spray foam guys somewhat do, but this is really something where we can change the industry with regulation, where if we can put the foam to the underside of the roof deck, have that recognized as code, and then get the non-vented roof details to have lesser installed R values, where we're having these crippling mandatory white paper values that we need to hit, then the first thing we can do is get lower install costs, more jobs, more affordability, better for everybody. That's what I want to see doing state by state, province by province, because if they keep increasing the values where we need to go R40, R50, R60, it becomes totally unaffordable. And we don't need that. It's not an actual better way to go. The spray foam system is fine on its own, hence why we need to get it recognized for lower installed R values.
Sure. Real quick, do you want to pivot back to the comment that just came up?
Yeah, I do, actually. Let's put that back up. What's left? Yeah.
Yeah, so New York.
What's left to get the New York bill passed?
So the Assembly bill is sitting in committee. The committee needs to vote it out, and then it needs to go to the floor, be passed by the full assembly, and then Governor Hochul would need to sign it. So if you think of the process in 5 steps, you have the Senate committee, the Senate passing it, the Assembly committee, Assembly passing it, and then the governor signing it. We're 2/5 of the way done, but the bill is still alive, and there's opportunity to get it passed this cycle or this year. If not, we'll come back next year and we'll start further down the field than we started this year. We started, in our own 0-yard line with no bill and no action, and we got, the Senate to pass it, which is a significant accomplishment for the first time taking a bill through the process. So we're optimistic. That's the only thing you can be at this point. There's not a ton of advocacy that can be done at this point. We made our pitch. Folks are generally supportive of the concept, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback. There just might not be enough hours left on the clock. So we'll see. Knock on wood, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you keep pounding away, figuring out what's in your way, get things changed, get things tweaked, and move on.
Yeah,
Ronnie, let's pick up one of the first
field.
comments that. Sorry, go ahead. What's that?
As I say, this is a new field for the Spray Foam Coalition. Primarily we were reacting to different government levers. Government would act upon the spray foam industry, and we would respond to that. We are now going into the proactive phase, and we are creating opportunities to win for the spray foam industry. That's completely different than what we were doing 18 months ago, 24 months ago. So this it's a big pivot. And one thing I try to tell my board and my members is, at the end of the day, we're going to lose a lot. You don't win in offensive advocacy every time you go out and you start to support a bill. That's not how the process works. The process is designed to be slow, designed to be deliberative, and we're going to work through it, and we're not going to give up just because we don't pass a bill the first time we take it through.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You got to learn what's in the way, what's working, what's not. Where did things stumble? I mean, you were just saying that the Texas bill, there was nothing wrong inside of the bill. There were just some peripheral things that were going on the agenda there that sort of put that thing onto the back burner, right?
Yeah, at the end of the day, we heard that the bill had the votes to get out of the committee in the House, and that would have been awesome. But at the end of the day, the bill sponsor and the head of the committee, the chair of the committee, had a political disagreement on a completely separate issue, and it was just hard to get our bill up for a vote. And sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's show business.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I've told that to a few people. I mean, we are trying to get things going, and not everything is the coalition's fault or the spray foam industry's fault. It's not being defeated. There's just other peripheral things going on, and some things get tabled. Yeah, let's put that.
I don't have numbers.
You put a comment there.
Yeah. So what does the bill mean for other states? So we have a strong showing of support for the unvented attic in heavily red states: Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Utah. North Carolina is purple, but that's North Carolina is unique in a lot of senses, especially when it comes to government. If you look at New York and Minnesota, the two more liberal or blue states that we play in, we've had a bit more difficulty, which you think wouldn't be the case. You'd think that these states would be pro efficiency and pro the opportunity to grow the spray foam industry, grow a product that reduces energy, saves more energy than it costs to produce, all the talking points that we all know. It would be great to have New York pass this bill as a flag in the ground for the other blue states. And we folks that do government affairs, especially state government affairs, always, you always say no one wants to be first and no one wants to be last. So we need our first blue state. And once we have one, I think it'll be a lot easier to get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's just how it works.
And so people understand. I mean, we're talking about taking things down from, in New York State, R49 mandatory right now down to an R30 with closed cell spray foam. Well, actually, any low permeance spray foam, not just
going up to R60 in New York. So we'd be dropping it by 50%. So it'd be R60 to R30.
Huge. It goes from, people say, oh, you guys are ragging on R value too much. You're talking about this too much. No. Understand this. This is about lives. This is about affordability. This is, instead of going in and spraying 7, 8 inches of foam in closed cell terms, which is unaffordable, it can get a whole lot thinner, and we're not giving up any performance. That's the thing that we're trying to make the argument about, educate people. We are not trying to lower installed values to where there isn't efficiency. It's the spray foam has gone so past diminishing return here that it's not needed. So we're needing legislators to recognize the power and efficiency of closed cell and open cell foam, and then write the rules accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just being priced out of the market.
One of the lamest talking points you hear in the insulation industry is, don't trade off air tightness for R value, or vice versa. And it's like, well, they're both the building envelope. So what are you talking about? There's no trade-off. There is no energy efficiency to the building envelope without without airtightness. And there isn't any without R value either. They work together. No one here is saying R value is bad. We're saying it's not the only metric to measure the performance of a wall assembly. And,
yeah, exactly.
And the other thing that grinds my gears in this world, and I'm sure we'll get more into this throughout the night, everyone says, oh, we need a code council because, no one understands energy efficiency, yada, yada, yada. It's like, well, calm down a little bit. One, the energy code is not a life safety code in the way that the electrical code is, or all of the structural requirements in the residential code. No one's dying. Oh, someone's going to chop my head off for that because, people get hypothermia and all that. But, let's be reasonable here, folks. I'm under the spotlight here. I got to be careful with, the absolutisms. But by and large, people aren't dying because they have R40. They don't have R49 or R60 in their attic, right? I mean, do you have R60 in your attic right now? It's like, no, your home's fine.
No.
So, I lost my train of thought there. So, well,
we keep chasing these ever moving goalposts, and it makes the homeowners frustrated, the builders frustrated, and we're frustrated because everybody understands that it was fine 20 hours ago, 25 hours ago, if you will. Like increasing and increasing and increasing isn't going to make things better. It's just going to make things more expensive. Technology keeps getting thinner and thinner with our phones.
Right.
Yeah, when it comes to insulation, we want everything to be thicker, heavier, bulkier. We're going backwards. I find it's only benefiting one group of people, and that ain't us.
That's probably right.
Let's take a look, Ronnie, at a comment on when we put out videos about unvented attics and spray foam and stuff like that. We get a lot of comments in the comment section. Let's take a look at the typical kind of stuff that we see out there that people either have objections to or what have you. Throw one up for us. Right. Instead of rewriting a new rule book, why don't we update the testing that governs the thermal advantage of any wall system? Well, that's good. Okay. Can you comment to that as to why we are needing to do what we are with the rule book?
Well, to me, that's the same thing, right? Changing the test is changing the book, right?
Right.
I like when people talk about the code book like we're sitting at a blackjack table. I play it by the book. There is no book. The rules are what the rules are, and they're set by a code council or they're set by the legislature. At the end of the day, folks need to recognize that these are just what people think are the best practice the day that these standards are adopted, right? They're never perfect. So yeah, do we want a new test for spray foam or do we want a completely new rule book? To me, the answer is both.
Yeah, exactly.
We need a test that measures the performance of the wall assembly for sure. To some extent, U factor is a step in the right direction, but it's not a perfect metric for the performance of the wall. But the idea that we're going to test every combination of a wall assembly in some sort of thermal chamber is also a bit extreme, right? So.
Right.
That's where the rule book and the prescriptive and to some extent even the performance side of the code come into play. So we're not testing, every framing factor, every amount of insulation, every air tightness. That's just not practical. So no, we need a book that strikes a balance between energy efficiency, affordability, and feasibility. And it's not going to happen in one code cycle. I can tell you that.
Yeah. And people don't understand that spray foam is not sitting down at these meetings. We're not being considered in a lot of the rules that are coming up. That's what we're trying to do with Spray Foam Coalition is sit down right now at some of these state levels and say, look, there's other things to consider here and here's why. But you can comment on that. I mean, we're not sitting at the table on a lot of these efficiency meetings to begin with right now. Isn't that true?
Yeah, no, there's not a ton of representation of the spray foam industry at the code process that happens in most states on that 3-year cycle. There are only a few companies that really play in that space, and we're working to be better at that, but it takes time, it takes resources, and it takes expertise, and we need to grow in all three of those areas to make sure that we're effective. At the legislative level, you pretty much have me flying around the random state capitals advocating for spray foam. We have an army of consultants that help us on the day-to-day advocacy, but it's just me, and there's a few other folks that are stepping into the field, and I'm excited about that. And I'm happy to help folks work with me or work separately from me and grow our industry. Right? There's no reason that this is the sole job of myself or the Spray Foam Coalition, the organization I represent. Our industry has a large footprint at the contractor level, at the manufacturing level. We need to leverage that entire footprint if we want to change public policy.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do two comments here. Richard Cheney's got a comment here we can throw up. Hi, thank you for this channel, and I'm a big believer in spray foam. That's good. That's what we're trying to do, is get the word out. Can you speak about makeup air, please? I'm assuming that he's going to be talking about makeup air inside of existing houses that have been spray foamed, that all or almost all of the envelope has been sprayed.
Right.
Yeah, it's absolutely important.
Seal
The
tight,
HVAC
ventilate right.
system should be designed.
It's a huge part. Seal it tight, ventilate it right. The joke I like to tell about this world is my wife and I built a new house in Washington, D.C., and we did under the slab, up the walls, in the attic. Every inch of this home has spray foam in it. I will admit that we put fiberglass where it belongs, between the floors, for sound attenuation.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm going to get
floors and walls.
But we did use fiberglass for that application because it made a lot of sense in that regard. But when we first moved in, I burnt a piece of toast in the kitchen, and my wife was upstairs in the bedroom, and I opened the windows, but it was winter, so I didn't keep it open too long. But I got the majority of the smell out of the kitchen, and 25 minutes later, my wife comes sprinting down the stairs. She's like, "I think there's a fire. I think there's a fire." I was like, "No, I burned a piece of toast. It just took its time to make its way up there." But yeah, because I'd have to go back and see what the blower door test came back at, but I bet it's below 3 air changes per hour. So we have a mechanical ventilation unit in the home, but it obviously takes time to clear out some of the air as the ERV works.
Yeah. What I'm telling people is, on new construction, you've got to have the system correct, balanced, and designed. You don't want it oversized so it's not running too few times, right? You want to be getting your proper air change per hour within the building. But on retrofits, it's a little bit more tricky because they might not be touching the HVAC system. But I've had a few that I've just told, you're going to have to do something with it. This is step one. You're spending money on spray foam to do your basement, your walls, your roof. What are you planning to do with the furnace? Do you have an ERV, HRV? No. Okay, well, that's the next thing that you're going to have to look and spend money and time on, getting that properly balanced and cycling so that you're not just sitting in stale air, and that you're bringing in fresh air, because you're wanting to manage temperature, you're wanting to manage humidity, right? And you need to have proper carbon dioxide levels within the house. So these are all where the HVAC system needs to come into play. The V stands for ventilation, right? So get the thing balanced. And we'll coach them on what to look for and who to talk to. There's a lot of really good people out there that can help with that. So it's not a big mystery anymore like it was even 10 years ago, kind of thing.
But it's obviously much easier in new construction. And in retrofit, that's why you see most retrofits focus on attics and crawl spaces, right? Because you're not bringing the air tightness down to a point where you start to have to install some of those mechanical systems.
Yeah. Let's take a look at another comment that we get from people that love and hate us. Yeah, tell me about whether you're a lobbyist without telling me that you're a lobbyist.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious answer to that is I am a lobbyist for the spray foam industry, and I'm not shy about telling folks that that's what I do. I'm paid by the manufacturers in the spray foam industry to advocate for public policy that improves the landscape. We remove market barriers. We do a whole host of things, but there are lobbyists scattered throughout the entire insulation industry, throughout the entire world. It's baked into our governmental system. Folks like to look at the Energy Code and the International Energy Conservation Code as this document that was chiseled into stone tablets and is perfect, but it's just as lobbied as as any state house and any legislature or any bill that has ever existed or will exist in the future. There are professional folks that are hired by different manufacturers that go to these meetings and advocate for the interest of their company. They are not necessarily all there because they want to improve energy efficiency. They are there representing the goals of the companies that they represent, and that's just a simple reality. And I have
Well,
no
when we first met, you told me too something interesting that I'd never thought of about lobbying. You said like lobbying isn't making backdoor deals in smoky, cigar-filled, whiskey-drinking backdoor deal areas. It's systems expertise. Like, can
right.
you bring somebody in that understands their product, sit down in front of people, and dispel the myths and the rumors? Because the myths and the rumors don't just stay in the comment section; they creep all the way up to this legislative level. So that's what you're doing. You're really in there shooting down professionally the naysayers and the trolls that are telling something that just ain't so.
Yeah, and it works both ways, right? We're not always beating back negative sentiment. We are oftentimes, and more recently, more of my time is spent on just general product promotion, because at the end of the day, folks don't always know that spray foam outperforms other insulations. This is not the world that they think of. But one thing that's been absolutely fantastic is the number of legislators that I've met with that have spray foam in their homes, and the meeting stops right there. What do you need? We understand it. It's in our homes. We understand that we didn't install the same amount of spray foam as you needed fiberglass. We understand that. But tell us how our state actually takes that policy and implements it. That's where they don't necessarily know the everyday workings of how the insulation concepts make it into rules and make it into people's homes. That's what I do, is I explain how that system works.
Exactly. Yeah. And these are the kind of conversations, folks, that we have on thinksprayfoam.com. Like, joining and becoming a member of Think Spray Foam enables you to have access to people like Steven. Steven's a member in there, and there's other experts there. And we're there to have conversations about what's going on and why, and help get answers that build your business, give you clarity, and then give you positive direction and that you can head for. Let's take a look at another comment that viewers like to say to us all the time. There's nothing appropriate. Oh, okay. About a lobbyist in the U.S. At no point should political decisions be biased by private companies and institutions. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of already touched on that. I mean, lobbying, like you said, it's not bias and backroom deals. It's laying out the facts and presenting the information to policymakers that need subject matter expertise to make decisions. Right? We can't expect every legislator to know everything about every topic that government touches. Right? Government is a massive engine in our society, and there are 535 folks that have been elected in DC. I don't have numbers in front of how many bills they pass every Congress, but no one's a subject matter expertise in all of these. And if you add in the state houses, the same is true. So folks need to be involved in the system that can help educate and bring forth good ideas and combat bad ideas. And trade associations are a great opportunity for manufacturers to work together to have someone like me exercise their First Amendment right to defend and promote their companies.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
right here, Seth Dodge has got exactly what we're looking for. He's got a great comment here. What data and arguments are we using to dispel the myths around our value to convince lawmakers to reduce the requirements? That's a fabulous question. Exactly.
Well, yeah. So, one, I don't say that we're reducing our values. We are right-sizing our values. We aren't reducing energy efficiency. We are finding the point of equivalency between an unvented attic with ducts in conditioned space at a certain air tightness with a vented attic that has ducts operating and HVAC equipment operating essentially in the ambient outside temperature. The Spray Foam Coalition funded a massive study by a group called RDH, RDH Engineering out of the Seattle area, and they did some modeling and found the point of equivalency between the vented and unvented attic, and that's the data, and that's the argument, Seth.
Right. Exactly. Well, yeah, you get into showing how insulation with air flowing through it performs, and how there's limitations on how the actual performance is going to be, so that you can have more of something but it's leaky, or you can have a little bit less of something and it's not as leaky. It's not to say you have to be up here where the leaky one is. It's that recognize the one that isn't leaking as much heat and as much air can do just as much as something more. So it's trying to change the mandatory entrance point, saying, look, you have to come up to here. Well, I was doing just fine down here. Those are the tests that we come in with and show that non-air permeable insulation is performing just fine at these installed values in the unvented attic assemblies with the ducts inside of conditioned space. And therefore, you should recognize this as code and not require extra steps to be taken that add cost, and I'll just put it on the level with the actual permeable and therefore less superior product. It's kind of like you don't use typewriter technology rules,
right?
The laptop.
Yeah, no,
it's
exactly.
That simple.
Yeah, and what's great about the RDH report is, folks in the fiberglass industry love to attempt to poke holes in it, but when we work to support the R20 statewide unvented attic in Florida, the state house challenged the code council to verify the testing, and they did that. And they essentially came back and said, "Yeah, this is right. R20 is unvented attic is what we need in Florida." So
right.
It's not just the spray foam industry saying this. It's been validated.
Yeah. And getting these changes, folks, out into the state level, provincial level in Canada means that you can build a code compliant home with less installed foam. The cost is coming down. The performance is not becoming reduced. It's win-win for everybody. The only person that's going to lose is somebody that's not installing spray foam. Yeah. Let's take a look. R value test is an airtight test. Therefore, the R value will only be realized when there is no air leakage. Yeah, in essence, what Paulie's saying is that it needs to be tested. It's a conductivity test, and that there's no allowance for convection, which is correct. Because as I was talking with Rick Duncan at SPFA, he's got a PhD in building science. If you're going to test conductivity, thermal conductivity, you sure as heck don't want any air movement through your insulation. You're testing for one thing: heat loss through touching, conductivity. So an air movement or a convective would skew your results. You're absolutely right. The problem is we've taken one test and allowed the entire rule book to be written largely around the results of that one test. So what we're now trying to do is say there's other factors in a building's heat loss that need to be taken into account rather than just conductivity. We need to take air leakage. Now, air leakage is in the code, but we need to give it a higher relevance and combine the two so that you've got a total package. And when you do this, you're going to start to see that air impermeable insulation wins every time.
Yeah, it's that's why your newer ovens have the convection setting on them. Putting a little fan in there and moving the air around makes them more efficient. It's what an air fryer. That's what an air fryer is.
Yeah, if you keep pushing for getting things off of just one view, conductivity, okay, then the people that have benefited the most from that test are going to lose market share. It's just inevitable, because more people will be able to make a decision based on solving more problems. One product can do it better and quicker, and there you go.
Right.
Let's take a look at some more comments there from previous videos. What we need to do is get government involved so spray foam becomes a code requirement, is what I heard. Maybe instead of trying to push a product nobody wants to buy, we sell what people want. Well,
yeah, that's a loaded question. I'll let you jump in afterwards, but my 2 cents here is one, Spray foam is code compliant. What we're actually saying is we're removing a barrier to market for spray foam. It's not that complicated, and we're not actually even mandating the use of spray foam. I have never supported a piece of legislation that says thou shall use spray foam. I'd love to do that. That's not the way the world works. At the end of the day, we are setting performance standards for an unvented attic, and any product that meets those performance standards can build that way. It's not specific to spray foam, and I will defend that to the end of the earth.
Oh, absolutely. We are trying to recognize the benefits that we bring,
right,
and give it credence within the regs. That's what we want.
It's a new pathway for builders. It's not even a mandate. You don't even have to build a vented attic or an unvented attic. I don't care. I'm just saying if you want to build an unvented attic, you should have different rules than a vented attic. That's what we're doing. It's, at the end of the day, if the fiberglass people want to write rules that are specific to vented attics, go for it. I would never oppose a bill that said a fiberglass attic was built this way. That's their world. I don't touch it. We don't build vented attics. We build unvented attics. And that is our world.
Yeah, let's take a look at another comment from previous videos. It's not the best, and we don't need more regulations on building a house. It's honestly a way to force people into paying someone to insulate versus insulate themselves with rock wool or even fiberglass. It's annoying, honestly, when someone says that their product is the best. Does spray foam have noise dampening properties? No, it doesn't. Will spray foam retain moisture? Yes, if it is open cell insulation. Okay, well,
I think all of that's wrong, isn't it? Spray foam does have the highest R value per inch. So depending on what your objective measure is of the best, even using their rules, spray foam has the highest R value per inch. So someone has to be the best. So I guess that's spray foam.
Listen, forcing people to use it versus insulate themselves. I don't think we'll ever get to that. Although I want to make a comment. Like, I think the day where you will be able to DIY an enormous amount of your house is going to eventually fade away. Okay. Now, just hear me out on this for a second. When you're borrowing bank money, right, and you're going to be involving underwriting and insurance, there's going to be more and more of a pushback on what knowledge and credibility do you have in order to general contract your house and have it done. All right. And the reason being is that there has been people that have said and made mistakes, big mistakes, because of the lack of information that they've had, and gone and messed things up. So I've started to see where if large amounts and certain amounts of money on certain pieces of land are wanting to be loaned, they're not wanting people to be self-general contracting. That's just a side issue that's starting to rise up. When it comes to insulation, especially on larger buildings and residential construction, more and more people are shying away from DIY than ever before in the last 20 years. And the reason being is that the mindset is shifting about how important it is to get the envelope correct and how tricky it is to get right, and how many areas and different products need systems expertise that the average person doesn't have. Now, with YouTube and with manuals and watching videos, you can try, but did you get it correct? Right? And you're wanting to go to more and more professionals that will come out of the gate first time, get it right, and not miss it. So it's not that we're trying to take away the ability. It's just there's more and more consequences out there, and they're wanting more and more. Like, would you wire the house yourself? Would you go and do structural footings yourself? Would you want to say, look, I don't want to hire somebody, I'm going to do all the piles myself? There's certain things that most people just aren't going to want to take along. The idea that insulation is so simple and so meaningless that I'll just go in and do it. This is the one area that I can save money on, right? It's actually a fallacy, because there's a lot of importance. Getting the waterproofing on the foundation, getting the thermals in the crawl space correct, getting the roof deck sprayed. Everybody wants to talk about problems with the roof deck, but then they want to go back to saying, well, I'll just DIY it. Well, then why don't you want our pro crew to come in and get it done for you? So
right.
I don't see the DIY thing, that argument holding water for very long. Nobody's trying to force them, because we're needing to go to a better system that won't have issues down the road. We've all seen the guy that installs something And then I'm like, who the heck did this? Oh, it was my drunk brother-in-law. Like, there's one job that we had, as they said, this is why you don't get people that owe you money to go and put your insulation in. Why? You did a lousy job, ripped the walls apart then, and had to go and fix everything back up that was placed in.
Right, but we're also not trying to get fiberglass banned. But I'm also not, no one that I know of is trying to get fiberglass banned. So the idea that we would oppose the DIY installation of fiberglass is just not correct. And on top of that, I actually haven't looked. I don't know what the fiberglass folks say the best practice is for installing their product. The one thing I do know is that fiberglass, spray foam, any building product needs to be installed correctly to work the way that it's advertised. That's not unique to us. It's not unique to them. It's not unique to drywall, right? You know, these products have to be installed right. And if you don't have the know-how, you shouldn't be doing it. I mean, to your point about electricians, you can wire your home. It doesn't mean that you have the knowledge to do it effectively or safely. The code inspector will decide if you did it safely, and the code inspector will decide if you installed spray foam, or sorry, if you installed insulation properly. There's nothing that we're doing touches any of that.
I'm a contractor in Canada. I've been spraying for 20 years, and more people are coming to us and are abandoning. Oh, I just don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to put the styrofoam up. I don't want to put the bat in. I don't want to touch it. I don't want the vapor barrier. I don't want to mess with it. I don't want the can. They're just saying, like, to heck with it. I do not want to mess with this and spend the time. And I won't do as good. They're being honest. I won't do as good a job as you guys will do in 2 hours in my house. So just come in and get it done. Like, the mindset is finally starting to shift.
I mean, I saw a guy at ResNet install fiberglass in a wall cavity in minutes and seconds. I mean, he did it very, very fast. They said he's one of the best in the country at it. And yeah, I'm sure he saves time to me doing it myself. So there is a cost savings using a professional contractor that does this day in and day out.
Yeah. Let's see another one there that's out there. They got all the hate. Oh, and then Huntsman discontinues the roofing spray foam. I think that was coming out of the comment about that Huntsman just spent nearly $1 billion, $750 million on buying spray foam companies. And then someone says, oh yeah, and then they just go and discontinue the roof spray foam division. I don't know. I don't know if Huntsman's doing
I don't know anything about that one. That's news to me if that happened.
Exactly. I think it's just sort of an eye roll of, oh yeah, so you go and get all this stuff and then you're just going to discontinue the model that I bought. Probably not. Like, roofing foam has definitely gone down over the last decade, but less of it being done than it was previously. But there's still a lot of major players out there that want to do it.
Yeah,
want to pick up the foam.
It's a great product. I don't know about the day-to-day business decisions that are made by members of the Spray Foam Coalition. That's an internal thing that they do based on the market data they have.
Yep. Yeah, Richard Cheney's got a comment here. Is it still true that you need a minimum of 2 inches? And why is yours purple? Is it true you need a minimum of 2 inches? 2 inches for what would be my real question. I'm assuming they're going to say to be a vapor barrier.
Yeah, that's generally where you hear the 2 inch requirement. There is, off the top of my head, the only area where I think you could use less than 2 inches of foam would be with some of the new HFO foams in the warmer climates. If you were to use closed cell in South Florida, you only need, I think, R13 in the wall, so you could get 2 inches of R, 7.5 and be at 14. But that's an open cell market. No one's really closed cell on the walls down there. So the purple issue isn't necessarily specific to Spray Jones. That's color foam that is mandated by, well, the color specifically isn't mandated by the government, but the Government of Canada requires closed cell foam to be dyed a certain color, and BASF's color just happens to be purple. Huntsman's green. I don't know what color Elastichem and Genex are, but you probably do off the top of your head.
Yeah, they're a lavender color. Elasticam is a lavender. I just want to go back on this 2 inches here because I'll take a swipe at this here. BASF has got a chart. They don't have it on their current data sheets, but they did 2 generations ago in foam that they would rate the thickness of foam required on the substrate in order to be a vapor barrier. So they would add the water vapor permeance to whatever substrate they were dealing with, OSB, plywood, concrete, steel. Steel already is a vapor barrier. And then they would rate how much foam, closed cell foam, it would take in order to reach, in Canada, 60 nanograms. So 60, 59, 58, those are all vapor barriers, okay? Or one perm. One perm is 60 nanograms. So they were finding that on oriented strand board, 3/8 thick, like an inch and a quarter, like 30 millimeters, was a vapor barrier already. So no, what I would say, Richard, is that you've got to rate the substrate with the amount of closed cell foam that you're applying and get a total water vapor permeance for the assembly. And that's how we rate whether or not we've got a vapor barrier or not. And then, yeah, why we're purple? Stephen answered it. It's just we're dyed and it's trademarked. In Canada, every foam has got to be readily identifiable by sight when it's building code certified. I think that's something that's got to start happening in the US. I think every manufacturer should have its own unique color code. It's a great marketing tool, but it's also instantaneous. You walk into a building and you know, boom, exactly what kind of foam's been sprayed because it's readily identifiable by sight.
Yeah, the only comment I have to that one that I hear is that the open cell doesn't die quite as easily as the closed cell. So
right,
Canada being a closed cell dominated market, it's not an issue. But here in the US, you could dye the closed cell, I would guess, and then in the southern US, those regulations would have to be a little bit different to account for the fact that they use more open cell.
Yeah, let's go on the comments here. What's Seth Dodge saying there? Is there any credence to the argument that open cell in unvented attics are vulnerable to vapor drive? Is there any data to the contrary?
I think this happens to do with, and I'm not the technical guy, so I'm going to be a little bit dangerous here, but I think this has to do with the concern about condensation and open cell spray foam more so than closed cell spray foam. So the coalition did a study, almost 6 or 7 years ago now, where we measured the moisture content of the roof deck in northern Florida and showed that, no, you're well below the threshold of failure, which I think was 30%. We were well below and on par with standard attics. Don't quote me on all that. If you want more specificity, I can get you in touch with our technical consultant that could handle that question, no problem.
Yeah, I'm going to take a stab, like being in the cold weather climates here, and then dealing with people in the upper US. If you're going to be using open cell foam in an unvented attic, you've got to see what climate zone you're in. Now let's just take Canada for a second. Okay, we require a vapor barrier, but if you're in an area that you could be need a vapor barrier or not, like you're sort of waffling between parts of the time of the year, you got to be really careful, because if you go and put open cell foam and you have high internal moisture content within the home that isn't being vented, and then you get a cold enough drive on the outside, you can have vapor drive through open cell foam that can make it to the roof deck. And if it's long enough and sitting there long enough, it can raise the sheathing level percentages. Okay. So an example of this would be say somewhere in potentially Oklahoma, all right, or Colorado, where maybe you can get away with open cell foam. Maybe you should be going closed cell foam. So I had a guy called me up from Oklahoma City and just said, I'm putting open cell foam in and I'm concerned about vapor drive and ridge rot. What should I be doing? And I said, well, if you're strictly concerned, put a vapor barrier on internally. End of story. Like, stop it at the warm level, put your open cell foam in, put a vapor barrier up at the warm side, and then you know that it isn't going to migrate through and make its way through. You've stopped it at the warm side. He's like, hey, that's a simple answer.
There are, and I don't know the number, but there are several manufacturers that have a vapor barrier coating that goes right on the foam.
Yeah. And I mean, vapor barrier in cold weather climates is going to be needed. I mean, I don't like getting into all the washiness of open cell foam. We've had some some cantilever talks where the foam is 12 inches thick, and at that point, is it going to be sufficient to slow vapor drive? That's a whole nother topic for another day. But the answer is, if you are in cold weather climate, you're in North Dakota, you're in South Dakota, on and on and on. Okay, you're using open cell foam. Take your necessary precautions and get your one perm on the inside when using it, and you won't have any problems. So you want enough to be an air barrier. Yeah. Well, yeah, most closed cell foams are going to be rated at an air barrier in an inch. I know that Air Barrier Association of America, and back when Kafka had their CCMC numbers in Canada for wall tight for air barrier system on the outside of the building, they could achieve it at 1 inch. So boom, 1 inch of closed cell foam, and there you go. You're stopping air. Now it's got to be across joints. It's got to be across transitions. You're not just putting foam in the middle and ignoring it where it's changing from up to down and left to right. So those are the things that you need to do. It's got to be across all transitions. It's got to be continuous, right? Because the idea is continuous stops the air at the seams. Where else is it going to get out at, right? At the seams, at the transitions.
Yeah, Seth.
Love to get
I'm
eyes
sure
on that study, hey?
Yeah, it's LinkedIn is there. Contact me there. Sprayfoamcoalition.org has a contact us that goes to me. Mike has my email address. Mike.
Yeah.
Find me.
And I mean, if any of the people that are on here tonight are spray foam guys, I mean, you want to get into this kind of dialogue. This is what Think Spray Foam is all about. It's an app in your phone, and we are sitting there dialoguing constantly about what do we want to do and how do we want to do it, and who's got a report and who needs things. And it's, no trolls. We're not sitting there getting beat up asking a question saying, hey, has anybody encountered this? What do we do with that? So what have we got for other people's comments that we've seen on videos? Our country is 1.5 to count as an air barrier. Okay. Well, I'm not sure what country that is, but that's fine. Do you recommend closed cell foam to insulate an old rubble wall foundation and headers from the inside 1890s house? Any special recommendations, sill plate, moisture considerations? All right, that's a good one. We get asked that all the time. Yeah, we do, but you've got to stop the water from coming through the wall, right? It's not just that you've stopped it with the spray foam and it can make its way partially through still, and you're putting a plug in the jug kind of thing. So they've got to have damp proofing and waterproofing externally. But then the next logical thing to go do is to okay. Yeah, the next thing that you've got to do once you've got it waterproof to the exterior is get spray foam on the inside. Yeah, absolutely. And we've done a lot of rubble and a lot of brick and a lot of rock. We don't see it all the time, but we've done a number of them, and people have said, "Oh, no, you can't touch this. You can't touch it. It's got to breathe both ways." No, if the mortar's intact, the best thing you can do is have a full continuous envelope inside, stop the water from the outside, and then put up that spray foam on the inside, because you're not allowing the heat and the water in the air to migrate through and get into the pointing and into the mortar and break the thing from the inside out. So it's a really good. And I've got a Morrison Hirschfield study on brick buildings in cold weather climates and using closed cell spray foam, and they say exactly that it's totally acceptable to do, and they're not hovering in this freeze thaw cycle where you need to supplement it with heat loss from the inside. So
great answer. Oh, county, not country.
Oh, Patrick is just saying it's in his county, not country. Okay, that's fine. Policy, i.e., means getting it written into the specs when there is no other or similar product.
No, that's I mean, we sort of touched on that earlier. We're writing standards for how to insulate unvented attics. It's not specific to spray foam.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
we see this all the time.
I challenge people to go read the rules and read the laws that have been passed and signed into law. I don't really feel the need to comment more than that.
No, that's it. It's just ignorance gone to seed when you get stuff like that. They're just trying to naysay. What else have we got on other videos that people say? So the complaints about fiberglass installation companies forcing codes and now spray foam installation companies wanting to force codes, also pot calling the kettle black. No, I don't think people, Steven's already commented on this, so I'm going to jump in on this one. Like, people don't understand how locked up things are for building until you try to go and do things that are outside of the status quo. Okay. So go and try to do an unvented attic and try to be more affordable using alternative products and alternative methods. Okay. So realistically, what we have got is abacus and typewriter rules that are trying to be enforced in laptop, iPad worlds. Wouldn't you be frustrated if you had to get the whiteout bottle, right? So what we're trying to do now is get the rules updated. We're not trying to force anything on anybody. It's like these are antiquated, outdated methods, and we're trying to get new methods, new materials, and hence the regulations corrected to recognize it.
Yeah, and there's another piece here too. It's that the International Energy Conservation Code, the model code that's used in the U.S., has a prescriptive and the performance path. And the performance path feels like it was created just to justify never changing the prescriptive path. We have the prescriptive code, the thou shall part of the code, insulate to this level and move on, the easy button. The easy button works great for one particular product, maybe a couple of particular products. But anything else, anything unique, just use a performance path. Never considering that adds cost and undue burden when we've built millions of unvented attics. At what point do you move from the performance side of the code to the prescriptive code and get handed the same easy button that's allowed certain industries to flourish under the prescriptive code for 20 plus years?
That's exactly right.
Simply put.
That's exactly right. And there's such frustration because if you're building in New York and you're telling us it's R60, think about building a new structure and you want to use foam. Well, then foam's been pushed out because we don't need to go to R60 in order to have a warm, dry home that will last for a very long time.
You're selling the consumer things that they don't need and they get no value from. I mean, as much as folks want to call me a lobbyist for the spray foam industry, we're actually lobbying to sell less foam in every house. So I must be a pretty bad lobbyist because that's not normally what folks think lobbying really is, right? It's you want to sell more of your product. No, we want to make spray foam more competitive so it's adopted and folks have nice, comfortable homes. I mean, I've sat in my house and I've seen the temperature drop outside, the heater's off, but we wake up and our house is hotter than it was when we went to bed. I mean,
right.
Where did the heat come from? Our bodies.
And that's why we're doing these lives and we're doing these information sessions. People, we are trying to get things corrected so that you don't have to spend as much money up front on construction costs and that you can get a better product, reap the benefits of that, and not have to outlay the cash. Like, it's just win-win for everybody. It's only not win for one group. It's got a new comment here from Bill from Spray Foam Worldwide. Welcome, Bill. Glad to see you here. I would like to hear what Steven's primary goals are for the industry over the next 5 years and how they will benefit the everyday spray foam contractor company. Great question.
Yeah, I think there's two. One is continuing to advocate for new rules for unvented attics at the state level. If unvented attics are more cost competitive, I think we'll see more unvented attics, which helps the everyday Joe contractor installing foam. They'll have more work. They'll have more jobs. The second bill is the more systemic code, which is a big project the coalition's working on. We go into some detail of this on our podcast that we recorded back in, I guess, February. Gosh, that was a long time ago. And it's to do, multiple years of testing to ultimately write a set of rules that is parallel to the prescriptive path for fiberglass for spray foam. So we have a similar easy button that installs the right amount of foam in every home, not the most amount of foam in every home. Right. We obviously fill every stud cavity with as much foam as we can fit 2x6, 2x8 walls is all, fill them with foam. That's great, right? But that's not a smart way to build a home. So fixing rules to have long-term success in the industry is really paramount to penetrating beyond 15% market share, Bill. And if we get that right, we'll see market share jump, double digits. And I think we'll have a ton of work for everyday contractors. And I think that will help folks be busier, have better businesses, bring in more money. I mean, that's the goal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Nothing has been more detrimental to things than ever-changing goalposts where the foam has got to be installed thicker. The foam's gone up in price. Foam's more expensive, and now we're needing to use more of it. Like I keep saying, these things keep getting thinner, yet our spray foam is getting thicker and thicker and thicker. We're needing more and more of it. Enough already. And what people don't understand is that it bloody well works at 3 inches at closed cell foam. Like we really don't need 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. And it makes the buildings more expensive and it makes people frustrated.
Well, the more disgusting part of all this is that the level of proof that the spray foam industry needs to bring to the table to change anything towards the level of proof that the folks bring to the IECC to change our values in the prescriptive code is completely different. They submit cost-effective studies based on market data. They don't disclose the data, and they just say, "Hey, it's cost-effective. Increase from R13 in Tampa to R15." Why? No one's done a study to show that that's actually improving the long-term energy efficiency of the home. They just say it's cost-effective. Right. Oh, it's cost-effective. Trust us. Move on. But the spray foam industry has to have years and years and years of advanced computer modeling on energy performance to make a single significant change to the building code. It's a joke.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, this is I got into it. We've got an exclusive podcast we'll be releasing on thinksprayfoam.com here soon with Paul Valley, and he's president of Green Valley Products, a spray foam company, but he was president and CEO of Certainty and for a long time. And I've asked him, why are we not seeing the fiberglass guys pivot into backing spray foam more and more? And he's got some pretty fascinating answers as to why he thinks there's been a lack of jumping on and pivoting. But we need to see the industry embrace the new technology, because what I see going on right now is just this big phase change, really, where the older technology has been used for 80 years. It's cheaper, but more and more technology is being needed. More solutions are being needed. More growth is being needed. Spray foam is going to fill that. It is the leading technology out there to advance the next generations. Why are we not seeing more people pivot towards it?
Every refrigerator in the 1950s had fiberglass in it. I don't think I know any refrigerators that have fiberglass in them today.
Right, exactly. Right. And we're seeing more and more of this. People are waking up to the fact that the older ways are really, like beta tapes. It's getting phased out now, and it's time to go towards, the live streaming technology that we will have, DVDs at the very least, right? Yeah. I mean, Corey Poping is saying it's an uphill battle, but the industry needs big change. Yeah, it does. And it needs some people to champion it, get behind it, a unified voice. But let's be frank, okay? The rules are written right now for the cartel. The fibrous cartels I'll go out and say it. I'm going to say it right here, right now. I mean, the fibrous cartels have
for the record, Mike
their
said
rules
it.
written
I'm going to point to Mike. Mike said it, not me. Don't come after me.
I said it right here in the video. The fibrous cartels have got their rules written, and so we're trying to go up against something that has been the established norm for a very, very long time. And they don't want to get those rules changed, and they don't want to make things. I mean, everybody came out against the unvented attic R20 rule in Texas. Everybody came out. Johns Manville did, Owens Corning. So they're not interested in getting going. They're not interested in seeing the change come through.
Yeah, one of the more ironic things that we've seen is when the fiberglass folks were testifying, they said, R20 might be the right number in Texas. we just don't like the way you're doing it. It's like, well, I don't know what to say to that one. I mean, you're admitting that our technology works this way, but you don't like us having rules that allow it. I don't know how you square that circle.
No, it's the future, and I'll give you 3 good reasons. One, we're seeing the wildfire issues, the spark and fire ingress
Yeah, we
through
haven't
the
talked
vent,
about resiliency yet.
right? So we're wanting less fire propagation through unvented attics. The second is the ductwork up inside. We're wanting to get that ductwork on the inside of the attic and inside the warm zone. And then the third thing is resiliency, wind uplift, hurricane, storms. This is win-win. This is going to be the future of how we're going to build.
Sure.
And then finally, I guess the fourth bonus point is just complexity of roofs. I mean, this is something that Jonathan Schmiegel with RDH said in a recent podcast that will be airing here on thinksprayfoam.com. He just said there are a lot of very complex roofs that we don't know how we can get positive, effective ventilation into them. At that point, they must be switched over to foam. Right. It's not that we don't want to use foam or don't want to use fiberglass, he's saying. It's that as soon as we see certain things line up of complexity, we know, all right, this is the better solution. This is what we want to go for. So there's your 4 good points, right? Spark, fire propagation, ductwork, resiliency, wind uplift, and then finally complexity. I don't understand why, now we just need to get the R values down in the roof from unsustainable to sustainable. Boom.
Yeah. The future's bright for spray foam, for sure.
Spray foam has its place in the world, but its biggest flaw as a home builder is it eventually shrinks. Oh, yes. It eventually shrinks and breaks, allowing condensation. If the foam doesn't break, the wood expands and contracts enough over time, it separates. Happens a lot in roofs where snow is a regular seasonal thing.
I mean, I don't see any data or substantiation there. We've been building unvented attics for what, 30, 40 years, and
well, in Canada, the closed cell foams carry a CCMC number for air barrier material, and they wouldn't be able to do that if they couldn't pass the expansion and contraction test that you put an air barrier cycling through.
Right.
And I guess that would be pretty big news to Laverne Dalgliesh and Air Barrier Association of America that closed cell spray foam is going to expand and contract with the building over time and crack all the foam, and then it's not going to be sealed up. So I've seen this myth quite a bit there's a couple of YouTube channels that have been propagating this live for a little while, and we're going to have to do one to dedicate to putting a stake through the heart of this thing. The foam has clear areas where you cannot spray it without an expansion joint, okay? There's just going to be enough movement that it would crack the foam. That's where you use transition membranes for. But in 99% of the situations, in residential construction, wood frame construction, commercial and residential, right? A CMRU building, commercial rental unit, or a house, a residence, if it's properly installed and it was dry at the time that it was installed, right? You're not going to expand and contract enough to break the bond adhesion to the wood. You're not. In fact, it's going to structurally support the building from excessive expansion and contraction. It's going to give it more, this is a well-known fact in wind uplift, where they have studied down in Florida, putting the spray foam unvented to the roof and entirely 100% under the roof versus just doing a 3-inch application around 1 foot. And it's staggering. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's staggering how much extra support that it adds to the roof deck. So the spray foam is not expanding and contracting and cracking free, right? It's isolating the building, giving it support, giving it resiliency. Just go ask the garage door panels. Come on, guys. Did the garage door panels break apart over 5 years and the panels just flimsy and wobbling away? I don't think so.
Well, the other side of this too is, the thing our technical consultant, Paul Duffy, always brings up. He's like, in cold climates, they adopted unvented attics, near the Arctic in Canada because wind-driven snow was a far greater problem to have, inside the attic, where you were actually getting snow accumulation inside the attic. So they switched to unvented attics because it was just a better way to build in that climate. So people can claim spray foam fails, but vented attics also fail. You have to build
Yeah.
you have to design the right way and build for the climate in which you're located. Spray foam is not always the answer. It is a lot of the time, but pick the product that works best for your
Oh,
design.
there's a good question. All right. Spray foam's not always the right answer. There's only been a couple of times where I've had to tell people that I've said, no, I don't want to take the project on. And if people are interested and curious, like if I'm in a high water table and they want under slab being sprayed and the ground is perpetually wet and going to stay wet a lot, then I'm going to say, look, you might want to just put down rigid styrofoam right now because it's so wet down here and it's going to take a lot of effort to dry it out. We're not going to be able to spray the foam anytime soon. Likewise, on the outside of a very tall building where we can't protect it from wind, installing prefabricated insulated panels might be a lot better than putting spray foam up 20 stories up into the wind where it's going to be swirling around and getting on the windows.
Sure.
Spray foam's not always the right answer. Yeah, that's kind of the case. I mean, you've got to look at, again, what are you doing? I've had some people that have been in a late season, can't heat the building, and they want to get spray foam put down on the ground. The ground's freezing cold and wet. And yeah, it's just not the right situation. If you can't change the climatic conditions to favor the spray foam's installation, then yes, you got to just say no, pass, walk on the job. Patrick, what are you saying? All the above, spray foam solves many issues that have plagued the home building industry. Glad to hear someone is trying to shine a light on spray foam advantages. Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
It does.
Working hard. Yeah. It's a great product.
Yeah, it is. Demystifying it. If you have a single roof, you need ventilation in your attic. Without it, the shingles will deteriorate, prematurely melt from high temperatures in the summer. Perhaps metal roofs are a better alternative. Okay, that is dispelled. I've got a video on the Spray Jones YouTube channel entitled Shingle Life and Spray Foam, and that has been beaten up quite effectively.
Yeah, I really love that one because at the end of the day, folks are concerned that an unvented attic makes a roof deck hotter. I believe Joe Stebrook did some testing on this and saw an increase of a couple of degrees, maybe 10. I got to believe that the difference in the temperature of a shingle in Ottawa in the winter and Phoenix in the summer is a lot more than 10 degrees, right? And those shingles are still performing. What's the temperature swing there? 150 degrees it's an outdated talking point for sure.
Well, we've got color has a large impact. Polly Webster, absolutely. Color, direction of face, and manufacturer's style. Like, is it a fiberglass shingle or is it an asphalt shingle? But again, on Spray Jones YouTube channel, we have got Shingle Life Myth. And in there, some well-known test huts where they found that it was like just 2 degrees Celsius between vented and unvented. Like there was a 2 degrees Celsius increase. I've said it this way for years. This is just practical. Okay. If you're not allowing the heat to get behind it, it's not going to spike. You're not going to get a greenhouse effect. So the the shingle in direct sunlight is the same temperature, folks, as if there was a vented attic. The shingle face in direct sunlight has to be the same temperature, whether spray foam is behind it or vented airspace is behind it. What's going on is we're not allowing the temperature to penetrate through, get trapped, and then spike in a greenhouse effect. Okay. Yeah. The actual foam doesn't cause the face to spike. We don't need airspace behind it to dissipate too. So, and I mean, I'm sitting in my house right now doing this live stream. Across the street from me is my neighbor's house with jet black shingles, 4 inches of closed cell foam. The house was built in 2013. Not one shingle is curled or lifted. Not one. So I put the cheapest piece of junk on my roof, BP. The stuff blows off all the time. I built my house in 2012. This is the 13th year. We're not seeing anything prematurely curl and fail. right?
Yeah,
And elk shingles recognized this down in the United States a long time ago. Elk shingle manufacturers, they understood that they would fully warranty their product and stood behind it. There was no issues with it whatsoever. They, on a closed cell or open cell non-vented attic, they would fully warranty their product. So again, the does it cause the damage? No, we can prove that. Two, will they warranty it? Well, that's a whole nother subject, right? They want you to buy. That's money.
That's the piece
right?
that's propagating this myth, is the warranty. We've been installing these homes for 20, 30, 40 years, depending on the climate zone, and we haven't seen an impact.
Yeah, exactly.
At some point, the hypothesis has to come true, or it's just disproven. I mean, that's life.
Yeah. He says, Brian says, hey there, I've been spraying urethane in the Sierra Mountains for 20 years and I would like to chat. Well, you are chatting. Hello, Brian. Yeah. If you're still here.
Yeah, keep making comments, or find me through LinkedIn or the Spray Foam Coalition's website, and I'll
yeah. He's saying he wants to have a chat with you. Yeah, you betcha. Yeah. Well, you know what, Brian? Join thinksprayfoam.com. Steven's in there too. He's there. You can chat with him there. You can chat with him on LinkedIn, but you can also chat with like-minded people that are wanting to have a conversation about what's going on. Patrick, spray foam actually helps the fasteners on exposed fastener metal roofs last longer because there's less expansion and contraction. Absolutely. Yes, they do. I've heard in commercial situations like salt mines and potash mines up in Canada that there's buildings that have grown upwards of an inch. The roof has grown an inch in length due to expansion and contraction. And what ends up happening is it slots those things out. So yes, the foam backs it up, whether it's on top or underneath. It backs it up, stops the excessive expansion and contraction, stops screws and fasteners backing out, wind uplift. Mason Knowles has got some extensive on masonknowles.com. He's got some wind uplift and metal roof longevity studies on closed cell foam, to the point where a number of lumber yards were requesting that their lumber sheds be sprayed with closed cell foam, that they would keep all the lumber in, just for wind uplift, because the panels would start vibrating when they get a big wind in, and it would rip them off. And they just wanted it with closed cell foam to pin everything down and keep it stabilized. Yeah. Rick just brought up something pretty interesting. Can you review off-gassing and how common or not that is?
Well, depends on what you mean by off-gassing, I think, is the question. Obviously, when you install foam, the contractor needs to wear the appropriate personal protective equipment, and you need proper ventilation in the unit, and the foam needs to cure. And I'll use cure in the generic sense of the term, not in the absolute, for 24 hours before we generally say folks should reoccupy that space. And that is due to chemicals being in the air, in the breathing zone for a period of time. Now, the toxicologists that I speak to say that the reaction between the isocyanate and the polyol is happening much more rapidly than that 24-hour mark, but the 24-hour mark is there to be intentionally conservative to protect occupants. I've heard it's as low as 15 minutes. I'll leave the toxicologist to debate that. I anticipate when you say off-gassing, you're referencing poorly installed product that is off ratio, and something that has a more systemic impact on the homeowner. And I don't have good data on how often that happens. It is something that can happen. Like I mentioned earlier, all building products need to be installed properly per the manufacturer's instructions. It's great that many of the more modern reactors and equipment have mechanical shutoffs if the foam goes off ratio, and will stop the application process right there. And that technological advancement has helped the industry. What I think is more relevant to the question is not necessarily how common it is. It's that the industry is much more focused on the proper installation of foam than it probably was 20 years ago. And that's something that happens when an industry matures. And the manufacturers that I represent have invested, millions of dollars into health and safety programs and training programs to make sure that folks that are getting their hands on the product are properly trained and know how to install the foam per the manufacturer's recommendations. It's a success story, and it's something the industry should be proud of. The industry that we have today is not the industry we had in 2010, and probably not the industry that we had at the turn of the millennium.
Yeah.
Mike, any other comments? You're in that world a bit more than I am.
Yeah, like I'm. A couple of things. Your spray foam is designed. Closed cell spray foam is designed to terminate. Okay, so there's enough catalyst, there's enough blowing agent, and everything's designed to work at a certain centipoise. There's a certain viscosity of the resin, a certain viscosity of the iso and resin, certain pressure temperature, and when everything is the correct velocity, viscosity, and mixed, it terminates, and everything's 1-to-1 on ratio volume wise. But when you get off ratio, you've got too much of one or the other, you've got smell. Likewise, if you go and activate too much catalyst at one time, so you're well beyond the 2 inches, we're talking probably 5 to 6 inches rather than the 2, you can end up scorching internally the catalyst, and now more catalyst was entered to control the reaction, to speed it up, right? The catalyst is the gas pedal. You've initiated so much foam in one location that you can internally scorch it, and not all of the catalyst is terminated to the cell structure of the foam. Therefore, it can, at that point, when it's become too thick, too quick, it can have a slight lingering smell. However, it's scorched foam. It can be cut out. It can be replaced and removed. But when you're on 1-to-1 ratio and you've sprayed to 2 inches, per pass kind of thing, you're good to go. There's not a lasting odor. You're going to ventilate the house. You're going to ventilate the structure. There's going to be a little bit of an odor, just a tiny little bit, as it continues to climb down. Now, BSF, Huntsman, they've all had their foams tested in Canada, and I've spoken to a lot of the chemists. I've spoken to Chris Jansen and BSF about the foam, and he had this to say. He said that the off-gas testing, the volatile organic compounds, off-gas testing is such a poor word. It's a volatile organic compound test is what they're doing. Starts 24 hours after they've sprayed it. So they spray out the sample. Samples are collected. They go into a Mylar bag. The bag gets taken to the lab. On the anniversary of when the sample was sprayed, they open the bag and they begin putting it into the machine to test for VOCs. Within the first hour, the machine can no longer detect VOCs. Now, the test keeps going for 24 more hours, right? 23 more hours. And that's why they set the reoccupancy at the 24-hour time frame. Even though 1 hour into the test, the machine cannot detect VOCs anymore. So that's industry standard. But I'm going to say this about people. When people get something in their head that they're smelling something, it can be very difficult to convince them otherwise, even though the spray foam is not doing it, right? I've watched people blame animals, other caulkings, other sealants, other things that are going on in the structure, and said, hey, I think the house smells or something's smelling, and they try to blame it on the spray foam. So you got to cover your butt in this. I think that daily work logs and like in 20 years of business, we've had a very good success rate, but everything's got to be recorded. And that way, if anybody does make a complaint or has an issue, well, you can show them the report, you can show them what you were doing, and you've got something to back it up. But if you don't have daily work logs about what you were doing and where, it can be real hard to have a conversation. I had a guy one time from Milwaukee. He's a follower on the YouTube channel. I won't say his name here just so I don't want to embarrass him, but he got sued by a guy. And the guy claimed that, he had a stink in his house, and it was all the paints and the varnishes and all these other things that they had installed after the fact, but he attributed that to the spray foam. And when they did is they went in and did an off-gas, they did testing, they did a internal air quality test, and they saw right down the sheet, boom, 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 going down the list. None of these things are in the foam. And that as soon as they showed him that to the plaintiff, boom, claim is finished, So sprayed correctly. There is something I want to say about open cell foam, because we see these problems about stink with open cell foam a whole lot more enclosed. Mix your product, follow the instructions, make sure it's within the parameters, like do your diligence to do it correctly, because open cell foam, if you're not mixing it, I mean, there are foams out there that are no mix now, but still a lot of them need to be mixed. Mix and mix well, right?
Rick asked what the propellant is. In open cell foam, the propellant is water, which reacts to create CO2. Yeah. In closed cell, it's a hydrofluoroolefin blowing agent that has a GWP of 1. They're new technology that the industry's transitioned to in the US and in Canada. The hydrofluorocarbons were outlawed in Canada in like 2020 and 2025 in the US, give or take. Don't quote me on the dates.
I want Paulie's Webster's comment there. Odor in retrofits is largely due to tightening of the envelope. Yeah, that's great. Odor in retrofits is largely due to tightening of the envelope, when in fact those odors were always just there, were just more concentrated. That is true. I find too that concrete, paints, varnishes, sealants, duct, liquid caulks and what have you around ducts, they can introduce a whole bunch of new things that are in the building. And you're correct. You've sealed it up with spray foam, and then if they're not getting their air changes per hour to deal with it, like I'll give you an example here of something that happened to me. A friend of mine asked me to come in and put half-pound foam in his floor, and what he did was he was going to have everything painted. So he went and he had a bunch of the, like, he wanted to do an open ceiling concept. So we did open cell foam around all the ducts, around all the floor joists, and then we put DC 315 over it. Okay. And then he brought the guy in, his buddy in, and he painted everything black. The DC 315, the spray foam, the joists, the trusses, the ductwork, everything. Okay. 5 weeks later, he's texting me saying, you know what? This stinks. Like, the house stinks. I can't stand it. And I think I got problems. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is not what I want to do and go down this road with him. So when we went to him, it was purely paint. That's what he was smelling. His argument at that time was, I've had offices painted. I've done this. I've done that. I've painted renovations in my house. I've never seen paint smell for more than 2 days. And I said to him, yeah, but you've got an enormous amount of footage, square footage.
Yeah.
And you've got insulated concrete form basement. You got spray foam in the joist ends. You now got spray foam 100% in the floor. You got spray foam in the walls. Let it air out. Let it air out until this was summertime. We did the spray in February. He was complaining right away. A month later, 5 weeks later, I said, now that it's nice weather out, just let the air change, let it run. Because he only would run the system when they were at the cabin. This was his cabin. I said, run it all the time. And when he did that, it aired out and he calmed down and it was eventually gone. But here's something interesting. The paint industry doesn't like talking about this. It can take upwards of 9 months for paint, the smell of paint, freshly put paint, to fully dissipate. 8 to 9 months. So sometimes these people just have to calm down, ventilate the structure, and understand that the new car smell, the new plastic smell, all the new everything that they've just put into the building needs to eventually be dissipated out. And they're just going to have to be patient for that. It's not an immediate gone, you know? So I hope that answers something. Oh, somebody's asking about Fusion Air Purge type of guy or ST1 for closed cell. We're old school. Fusion Air Purge. They're cheap. They're easy to rebuild. My guys can build them like a World War II vet can rebuild a 1911 Colt. Like, easy. You can go with whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with, but Fusion Air Purge is what we're using. Which closed cell manufacturer has a 2-hour reoccupancy? It was my understanding when HFO was changed from HFC, the reoccupancy went to 2 hours from 24. I don't have any testing on that. In fact, right now, BSF is saying 25 hours, not 24.
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that off the top of my head. I think that the 2-hour reoccupancy thing is not correct. I think you're assuming 2-hour re-entry.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, you see some interesting marketing claims around that, but I don't know that I've ever seen a 2-hour reoccupancy.
Re-entry and reoccupancy. Yeah, those are good. Let's look at those for a second.
Yeah, so re-entry is when trade workers can re-enter the space without forced air ventilation, and reoccupancy is when the homeowner can move back in, and those are fundamentally different calculations. I don't know that had anything to do with HFC versus HFO. I think those things probably happened around the same time, but I don't know that they are tied to each other. I'd have to ask some of the chemists in the industry if those two are related. But no, off the top of my head, I don't pay too much attention to the specific re-entry and reoccupancy times folks are marketing. When the folks ask me, I say it's a 2-hour re-entry and it's a 24-hour reoccupancy. I just go with the industry standards there.
Yeah, and
then they're not standards.
When I was
practice, I think is probably the right term. There is no standard governing that.
Yeah. I don't think that you need to push it. Like what I tell homeowners is exactly what Stephen just said. And I explain to them why we're doing what we're doing. And I tell them, listen, it's your house. I can't force you to stay out of it. So if we're spraying a basement or a wall or something, then we'll get them out during the day and then we get them back in. If they want to go back in then that night, that's up to them. Like I cannot force them to not be in there. Right. And in 20 years of business, I would say 90% of the people that we spray foam for that are in a retrofit, that are in the residence, are back in that night. 90%. They stay away while it's being sprayed, but that evening they'd be back in. 90%. 10% will go get a hotel or stay at somebody else's residence and then come back in the next day on the anniversary when we sort of started. Spray foam's really not that hard to get right. Like it's not hard, right? Closed cell and open cell. Follow the manufacturer's recommendations, stick to it, and you're good to go. Rick saying, what? A new construction, there's no way that the homeowner is going to move in after 24 hours. Yeah, that's right. In my situation,
so reoccupancy is only relevant for retrofit, Rick. The reentry time is relevant for both new construction and retrofit. And then the other question flashed away too quickly there, Ronnie, if you want to put the other one back. What does the machine in the truck look like? That is a better question for Mike than me. I've been in the back.
What does the machine in the truck look like as far as setup before spraying, and what do you do to make sure the mixture is appropriate? Well, open cell foam, we've got an air mixer that goes into the drum, and all they're doing is they're turning that thing on 20 minutes before
ratio,
they're
Mike, not the mixture of the resin, the ratio, the A to B.
Sure. I'll just whether we're talking mix or no mix open cell foam, we will mix open cell foam in the drum to make sure it's fully dispersible. We'll push everything out of the lines back in, recirculate, make sure it's fully mixed. As far as the actual mix at the spray gun, that's all due to the pressure on the gauges. And the guys are going to turn everything on, and we'll generally do a test spray. Once the gun and the valves are cracked open, they're going to test spray on cardboard or into a garbage bag, and then they're just going to go check their gauges. Like my guys have been spraying foam for me for 13 years. They can tell when something's on ratio just by the color and how the reaction profile is behaving right then and there. Not saying that they don't check things. I just mean that the first instance is velocity, sound, color. Right away, you know something's off. You'd need to be a total newbie to not know whether you're making good product or not. So I just had the guys out to my place last week to spray some work, and that's what they did. They just brought the bag, they turned the machine on, they waited till they were up to temp on things, pulled the trigger until the pattern started to open up. They had good foam, and right away, we were good to go and roll. And then very quickly, you can go back and check, just make sure that your gauges are balanced, which they should be. So if there's any major off with the gauges, you would know right away at the gun. It wouldn't look right, it wouldn't feel right, and it wouldn't spray right. You wouldn't even need to go back to the gauges to check. In fact, it was interesting. A guy said one time, I like this. It was Jerry Whitaker, UCSD. He's retired now, but he used to say, "Listen, if the foam is spraying great, ignore what the gauges say."
I didn't say that.
It's there you go. Genic Elite 2.0 label says reoccupancy is in 1 hour. Okay, well, again, reoccupancy or reentry. I mean, they're saying reoccupancy, but
yeah, those terms have a specific meaning. So yeah, be careful. Make sure you know what you're doing.
Oh, yes, I like this one. Here's a negative comment. Insurance won't cover a spray foam roof because it can't find the leaks. Okay, that's total baloney.
Made up.
Rubbish, rubbish, rubbish.
Yeah. Put a false across the screen and we'll move on.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah, we can take that down because insurance will actually underwrite. Foam is recognized as a building code, and give me a break.
No,
if you go and put the premium membrane on a roof, are you going to be able to find the leak easier than without it? Of course not, right? Like, there's all sorts of waterproof coatings that make it harder to find a leak, but they're making it harder for the leak to get in the first place.
Well, there's also the fortified standard, which in 3 states in the U.S. gives you a discount if you put spray foam on your roof deck because you strengthen the roof deck. So I'd actually say that one's not just false, but it's the other side of the coin.
Yeah, exactly. Have we got any more negatives, Ronnie, or do we use them all up? Oh, yeah. Because without regulations, we've proven time and time again that we will cut every corner possible to make more money regardless of who or what we harm.
And we already talked about that. We're doing the opposite of that. We're trying to put, less foam in every home. I'm not sure what to make of that one, other than I'm the world's worst lobbyist, or we're trying to do the right thing for the consumer and put the right amount of product in everyone's home.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Sorry, all I heard was OMG, it costs so much to build a house to this minimum safety and structural standards. Everything costs money. It would be so much better without standards. Builders nowadays make a measly $200K on new construction. How will I feed my family on that?
Yeah, I don't know what the margins are on production building. I can't comment on that. Again, we're the IECC is not a minimum. It's not a safety standard. People will tell you that it is, but it's not a life safety standard.
Yeah. With enough head pressure, it will come through closed cell foam. That is an old fallacy. I don't know what exactly we're referring to there with that, but with enough head pressure, it will come through. I need more context on what we're talking about.
I think leaks. I don't know.
Have we run out of our old comments there, Ronnie? Or have we got one or two more? We're done.
All the comments, yeah. So, if there's no other comments there, I'm happy to chat. You can find me at my LinkedIn. Spray Foam Coalition's website has a contact me form. It comes to me. I hope to do this more regularly. It doesn't need to be done today. Mike, thanks for the platform. Ronnie, any other comments going through, or call here?
No. Cool. Well, we'll just wrap it up. We thank for everybody for coming in. I just want to remind everybody to be on thinksprayfoam.com. Check that out. See what's going on. That also helps support our work on what we're doing here. Membership there goes directly to paying for this kind of stuff, and so we can do more videos and keep more education going forward. So join at thinksprayfoam.com today. And we'll see how things turn out for another video in the not too distant future.
One last thing, in case folks aren't familiar, we sort of touched on this at the top, but then we got deeper into the advocacy piece there at the beginning. The Spray Foam Coalition is a trade association that is funded by the manufacturers of spray polyurethane foam and raw material suppliers to the industry. We have 27 members. 13 or so systems houses, and I guess that's 12 or so raw material suppliers. I should probably memorize the split there, but it changes with consolidation and things like that. But yeah, it's a trade association. We do things related to advocacy, to technical specs, to research, to public relations and marketing. Anything that a standard trade association does. So we're not just an advocacy organization. We're not just a technical organization. We try to mix all that up to help grow the industry. And our primary focus is to help the spray foam industry expand. I think we can stop right there.
And that's what we want, growth for everyone.
I like expanding.
Exactly.
Excellent. Mike, thanks for the opportunity. This is great. And yeah, let's do it. Let's do it, 2 or 3 times, 4 times a year.
I think so. Quarterly is something that we're going to want to do. So everybody have a great night. We'll sign off here for tonight, and then we'll be back on soon again. And hey, anybody that's interested, we'll be doing a live Q&A on thinksprayfoam.com on Thursdays. Every Thursday, we're doing for the members. It goes right through their phone app. You can join and have future conversations about whatever you want to talk about. Good night.